The Solari vessel Aurora's Grace drifted in low orbit over Earth, invisible to the primitive species below. Cloaked in refractive dark matter and shielded by atmospheric distortion fields, it was a ghost in the sky. On the command deck, Archivist Llewellyn floated within the crystalline observation pod. His four-fingered hands splayed over the holotable. "Report," he said, his voice like wind brushing through hollow reeds. "Planetary analysis ongoing," replied Submind 16. "Species is designated Homo sapiens. Technologically immature. Internal instability significant. Full planetary unification. Negative." Llewellyn's crest flushed with dismay. "They're still divided. At this stage of development." "Affirmative," said the AI. "Currently engaged in over 40 active military conflicts. Tribal factions. Economic disputes. Border skirmishes." "Barbarians," Llewellyn whispered, shaking his head. "Another lost world." He had hoped Earth would be different. The scans had been promising. A wealth of biodiversity, artistic expression encoded into planetary data streams, and languages numbering in the thousands. The Solari had catalogued countless species, yet humanity's emotional bandwidth was excessive. It intrigued him. "Show me their media." Submind projected Earth's open data into a three-dimensional bloom. Music, films, war footage, screaming goats, propaganda, poetry, weapon tutorials. "Fascinating," Llewellyn murmured. "They romanticize death. They laugh at it." "Correction, they laugh at everything," said Submind. Unclear if coping mechanism or cultural cornerstone. Llewellyn turned as a chime rang. The ship's AI had isolated a live conflict. "Bring it up." The hollow display sharpened. Earth. A continent called Asia. A border zone crackling with tension. Two nations in a delicate ceasefire now slipping into all-out war. Tanks rumbled through forests. Missiles streaked into the sky. Soldiers barked orders through dust and smoke. Llewellyn stared, transfixed. "Why are they doing this?" he asked. Submind answered clinically. "Territorial grievance. Resource scarcity. Ethnic division. Historical trauma. No single cause." Llewellyn floated back from the display, his body shimmering with bioluminescent distress. "They're eating their own world. And doing it with choreography," Submind added. "Observe." On screen, human troops moved with startling efficiency. A squad pinned under fire coordinated a counterstrike using hand signals and mirror flashes. Artillery support adapted its aim mid-shelling after a drone spotted an enemy column repositioning. A lieutenant, female with dirt-streaked cheeks and a bullet wound in her side, redirected a retreating unit to flank the enemy using an abandoned civilian rail line. Llewellyn's jaw lowered. "They're improvising mid-battle. Without command consensus." "Correct. Decentralized but effective. Highly adaptive," Submind replied. "This one's designation, Captain Naya Ulrich." Llewellyn tapped the hologram, enlarging her combat feed. Ulrich barked into a radio, pulling her sidearm and pushing through rubble to reach wounded comrades. "She's hurt," Llewellyn said. "She knows," Submind replied. Llewellyn watched in stunned silence as Ulrich dragged two soldiers to cover, stabilized one's arterial bleed with a shoelace, and signaled a medic using smoke grenades scavenged from enemy kits. Her eyes burned, not with rage but with focus. "She's beautiful," Llewellyn whispered. "In function. Crude. Efficient. Lethal," the AI added. "Projections indicate 78% likelihood of her survival." "Only 78. Llewellyn blinked. "She's clearly more capable than that. She is human. Humans are volatile." The battle dragged on for hours. Llewellyn watched not just the tactics but the faces. Young men and women crying behind cover. Medics running into crossfire. A tank commander cracking a joke while staring down certain death. He saw no joy in the war. But he saw something else, something terrifying. Unity. Not political or economic, but emotional. In fire and blood, humans bound themselves together with purpose. The Solari had evolved beyond such primal compulsions. War had nearly annihilated them 10 millennia ago. Since then, they had built a society of peace, controlled, structured, guided by consensus and logic. Humans, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. They turned it into an art form. Later, in the observatory dome, Llewellyn summoned the council transmission. Chancellor Thale's translucent projection shimmered into focus. "Report, Archivist. Earth is in crisis," Llewellyn began. "The species is violent, fractured. They wage war on themselves without compulsion." "Unfortunate," Thale replied. "Recommend containment." Llewellyn hesitated. "I am not certain that's wise." The Chancellor tilted his head. "Explain." "They are not warmongers by nature. Their violence is reactive, not predatory. And despite the division, they possess a unique cohesion during crises. Their tactical creativity is unnerving. They do not follow doctrine. They invent it." Thale's expression tightened. "Your recommendation. Observation. Not quarantine." There was silence for a beat too long. "You sympathize," Thale said at last. "Dangerous, Llewellyn." "I fear them," Llewellyn corrected. "And we must always understand what we fear." Down on Earth, the battle had ended. Captain Ulrich lay on a stretcher, arm in a sling, eyes half-lidded. A journalist leaned in to ask how she'd held the eastern flank. "Didn't have much choice," she murmured. "We're all we've got." A medic handed her a ration bar. She bit into it with a wince, then laughed at the taste. War was hell. But humanity was still laughing. Back aboard Aurora's Grace, Submind updated its prediction models. Threat assessment. Elevated. Species classification. Deathworld origin/high resilience. Potential outcome. Galactic disruptor. Llewellyn stared out the viewport at the blue and green sphere below. He whispered to no one in particular. "They're not ready. But perhaps we're not ready for them." Word count 1 to 10. Would you like to proceed with Chapter 2? The Inferno Doctrine next? The fire danced across the waters. Llewellyn watched the human naval battle unfold in eerie silence from the Aurora's Grace. The sea, that ancient cradle of Earth life, had become a stage for war once more. Two fleets clashed off a disputed coastline, exchanging missile salvos that lit up the night like a planetary storm. Metal screamed. Oil burned. Sailors, young, terrified, scrambled across scorched decks, shouting into radios and pulling comrades from debris. "Casualties rising," Submind reported. "Loss projection, significant." "Are they attempting surrender?" Llewellyn asked. "Negative. Neither side is signaling retreat." He floated closer to the projection, disturbed by the stoicism on human faces. Faces so expressive, so capable of showing pain, fear, joy, and yet hardened by necessity. These weren't unfeeling machines of war. They were feeling machines that chose war anyway. In the heart of the chaos, a vessel, older, rusting, hopelessly outgunned, charged headlong into the fray. Submind zoomed in. Designation, HMS Vanguard. Crew 62. Tactical status, suicidal. But on board the Vanguard, Captain Naya Ulrich stood again, arm in a sling, face stitched from her last encounter, giving orders as if she'd never left the field. She returned to active duty. Llewellyn asked in disbelief. Voluntarily. Refused commendation. Cited operational urgency. Why take that ship? It's ancient. Because no one would expect it, Submind said. Observe. The human naval forces had suffered heavy early losses. Their communications were jammed. GPS satellites compromised. The enemy fleet had deployed advanced jammers, guided torpedoes, and autonomous drones. The odds were mathematically untenable. But Ulrich didn't need odds. She needed unpredictability. She ordered Vanguard into the blind spot created by the enemy's own sensor net, an overlooked position too obvious for modern navies to use. Her crew manually plotted a firing solution based on visual estimations, wind direction, and old sailor instincts. Analog scopes replaced fried electronics. Radio signals were bounced off abandoned weather balloons launched hours prior. Llewellyn watched, captivated. She's not trying to win, he realized. She's trying to break them. And she did. Vanguard fired a spread of torpedoes toward the enemy flagship. Not to sink it, but to force them to reposition. As they did, the humans triggered an electromagnetic pulse using a sabotage drone launched days earlier as part of a civilian relief mission. The pulse fried enemy guidance systems, just long enough for 2 stealth corvettes to slip in and gut the flanks. It worked. The enemy withdrew, their formation shattered. Humans had turned a relic into a weapon of fear. Not with firepower, with madness. Llewellyn shut down the projection, floating in silence. She should have died. She calculated acceptable mortality risk. 62%, Submind replied. Survival was not the objective. Disruption was. He floated toward the memory chamber, deep within the ship. There, ancient Solari records rested in crystalline repositories. Locked, forbidden, sacred. Llewellyn passed a biometric scan and entered. Holographic avatars of extinct species flickered to life. Among them, the Vartal, the last war-capable species the Solari had encountered before abandoning interventionism. They were like us once, Llewellyn whispered. Yes, Submind agreed. And they destroyed themselves in less than a century of spaceflight. We stepped away. We let them die. Protocol dictated as much. Llewellyn turned to a still image. A Vartal warrior surrounded by fire, holding a wounded child while screaming into the void. He saw the same look on Ulrich's face earlier, unwilling to break despite the weight of it all. They're not like the Vartal, he said. They're worse. They feel more. Submind said nothing. Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Arjun Patel stood before the UN Assembly. This isn't just another war, he said, voice hoarse, suit wrinkled from a sleepless week. This is the moment we decide who we are when we think no one is watching. But someone is watching. He paused, letting the words hang. My data suggests a non-human intelligence is observing Earth. Satellite anomalies, atmospheric distortions, gravitational lensing, patterns too deliberate to be natural. Snickers filled the chamber. Whispers. Murks. A diplomat from the Eurasian Union shook his head. And you're proposing what? That aliens are judging us based on our wartime etiquette. I'm saying, Patel continued, that if we are being watched, this is how they will remember us. And right now we are failing. Us. Not because we fight, but because we fight without vision. Back on the Aurora's Grace, Llewellyn received a council update. 2. Archivist Llewellyn. From Solari Council Command. Observation continues. However, the Council is concerned by your emotional attachment to the species. Containment protocols are being prepared. Quarantine of Sol system recommended pending further analysis. You are reminded. Empathy must not override policy. Llewellyn closed the message. For a long time he said nothing. Then, Submind. What do the humans call it? Call what? This belief that even in chaos, some greater truth will emerge. Submind flickered. They call it the Inferno Doctrine. Llewellyn raised a brow. Explain. In military doctrine, humans often escalate to levels of conflict others deem irrational. Their logic. When everything burns, only truth survives. It is a trial by fire. They trust that from the ashes, they will evolve. He stared at Earth's rotating surface. Madness. Oh, adaptation. Prepare an unauthorized transmission, Llewellyn said. To Earth. The message reached Patel's lab via burst signal disguised as noise. At first his team thought it was sunspot interference. Then the pattern emerged. Binary. Structured. Intentional. His assistant choked on her coffee. Arjun. This is alien syntax. The message was short. One sentence. See you. We are listening. Will you be more than your fire? That night, Llewellyn watched a recording of Ulrich again. She sat beside a dying soldier. No cameras, no speeches, just a whispered lullaby. A hymn from her homeland. Her eyes glistened. She never stopped holding his hand. The fire was still burning on Earth. But so was something else. Word count, 1 to 10. Would you like me to begin Chapter 3? Reckoning next? The Solari Council convened in the amniotic chamber, a structure suspended in zero-gravity orbit around their capital moon. Shimmering in the quantum ether, the elder minds of the Solari floated in interlinked meditation, each connected by psionic tendrils. Consensus was their law, pure, logical, and unbroken for nearly 3,000 years. Till now. Llewellyn has gone rogue, Chancellor Thale announced, his neural signature vibrating with suppressed alarm. He has established illicit contact with the human species. Murmurs of dismay echoed across the collective. He defied protocol, murmured Elder Vel. Direct transmission to a non-council species violates our prime barrier accords. He believes humanity is exceptional, Thale said bitterly. That their chaos has value. Then he has forgotten what chaos costs, someone muttered. A silent pause followed, heavy with ancestral memory. Of wars lost, worlds burned, civilizational collapse barely averted by Solari introspection. A vote was called. The decision unanimous. Recall Llewellyn. Begin containment procedures. Prepare planetary quarantine. On Earth, the tide of battle had shifted. Captain Naya Ulrich's tactics had inspired more than victory. They'd ignited unity. For the first time in decades, rival factions paused to listen. Ceasefires became conversations. Her recordings, unofficial helmet cam footage and voice notes sent to field hospitals, had gone viral across military networks. In one clip, she cradled a dying conscript from an opposing nation and whispered, "It doesn't matter what flag you wear. You bleed red like me. That's all that matters now." The video struck a chord no political treaty could. Dr. Arjun Patel watched the phenomenon unfold from his lab, surrounded by comms equipment tuned to frequencies no human had ever touched before. They still hadn't cracked who, or what, had sent the mysterious alien message. But Patel knew one thing. They were being tested. He wasn't the only one to think so. Secret summits were being called. Military leaders and cultural influencers were having hushed meetings behind closed doors. A collective idea was forming, dangerous and powerful. If aliens are watching, we must show them the best of us, even in our worst moments. Llewellyn stood before his ship's memory banks, processing the Council's message. Recall initiated. You are relieved of observation status. Quarantine to begin within 72 Earth hours. He clenched his hands, something no Solari had done in centuries. It was a primitive gesture. Human one. No, he whispered. Not yet. Submind flickered to life. Defiance will brand you a renegade. Llewellyn nodded slowly. Then I'll be the first renegade in 3 millennia. He deactivated the command beacon. The Aurora's grace was now dark to the Solari grid. You believe they can survive this war, Submind said, watching him. No, Llewellyn said. I believe they can survive anything. That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them beautiful. On Earth, war still raged. The Eastern Front had collapsed into anarchy. Civilian populations caught between militias and rogue battalions. The global situation was deteriorating faster than any peace accord could respond to. Ulrich knew they couldn't fight forever. Morale was cracking. Supplies dwindled. And worst of all, the enemy had begun deploying autonomous combat AI. Drones programmed to learn and kill without human oversight. In one engagement, she lost half her platoon in 7 minutes. Afterward, she sat alone in a crater, watching the sky. "Still watching?" she asked quietly. There was no answer, but somehow she felt yes. Patel's lab received another burst transmission. This one wasn't from space, but from Earth. Encrypted. Military grade. He decrypted it and blinked. Operation Siren, it read. A global initiative. Secret. Unified. He read further. His pulse quickened. They were going to show the aliens something no species had ever seen before. A spontaneous species-wide ceasefire. On board the Aurora's Grace, Submind paused. "Levelin. Something's happening." The hologlobe lit up with data spikes across Earth's surface. All over the world, hostile engagements were ceasing. Units that had fought bitterly for years laid down arms. Civilians emerged from bunkers. Drones shut down mid-flight. The AI spoke, astonished. Simultaneous ceasefire achieved across 83% of global conflict zones. Levelin's glow pulsed with awe. Why? Unclear. But correlated to this broadcast. A signal played, a live global feed. On screen stood Captain Ulrich, flanked by soldiers from every major faction. Injured, weary but proud. "This isn't surrender," she said. "This is a pause. A moment to breathe. For them." She pointed skyward. "For whoever's watching. You wanted to see who we are. Here it is. We are violent. We are stubborn. We're emotional disasters. But when the universe leans in close, we stand together. Even if only for a minute." A ripple of silence followed. Then the feed cut to images from across the planet. Medics treating enemy wounded, children walking freely again, soldiers sharing rations with former adversaries. Humanity had paused its war. Not to win. To prove it could. The Solari Council received the data hours later. Their projections could not explain it. Their models had no precedent. "No species has ever done this," murmured Elder Vel. Thale was silent, eyes narrowed. "They are not logical. They are willful. It is more dangerous than chaos. It is choice. But they chose peace." For now, the council was divided. The vote for planetary quarantine failed by one. Humanity had earned time. Back on the Aurora's Grace, Levelin stood before the viewport, watching Earth. "They changed the script," he said. "No one told them how to pass the test. They rewrote it." Submind added quietly. "They didn't even know there was a test." Levelin smiled, an expression he hadn't made in centuries. "Now the real reckoning begins. Word count. 1-200. Would you like me to move forward with Chapter 4? The Watchers step forward for the climax and resolution." The silence in the Solari Council chamber was thick, almost suffocating. For the first time in history, the Council faced a dilemma no algorithm or ancestral wisdom could untangle. Humanity. The species was no longer just a subject of observation or quarantine. It was an enigma. Levelin stood before the Council's assembly. His presence a flicker of rebellion and hope. The Council had recalled him, branded him a renegade, but he remained resolute. "They have passed the trial," he declared. "Not by surrendering to order, but by embracing their chaos. Their unpredictability is their strength." Chancellor Thale's voice was icy. "You argue for continued contact, but their violence persists." "True," Levelin admitted. "But so does their capacity for unity, for empathy, for hope." A tense silence followed. Then Elder Vel stepped forward. "We have sent the offer. The first contact protocols. If they accept, Earth joins the galactic concord." Levelin's bioluminescence brightened. "Have they responded?" The Council's communications officer projected a message. A transmission from Earth, signed by Captain Naya Ulrich and Dr. Arjun Patel. "We have seen your message. We accept your offer of contact, but on our terms. We will meet as equals, not subjects. We ask for trust, not control." The Council murmured, some in shock. Levelin smiled softly. "That is humanity." Meanwhile, Earth buzzed with anticipation. The once fragmented nations had formed the Earth Unity Coalition. Ulrich and Patel were its co-chairs, symbols of survival and intellect. Their message to the world was clear. We have been watched. Now we must watch back. Preparations were underway for the first interspecies summit. A Solari envoy would land on Earth. In orbit, Aurora's grace shimmered as it descended through Earth's atmosphere. A vessel cloaked in advanced technology but carrying the weight of 1,000 years of fear, hope, and history. Ulrich watched the ship land from the ground command center, surrounded by her fellow soldiers and diplomats. The air was electric with tension and possibility. The hatch opened. From the shadows stepped Llewellyn. Their first meeting was nothing like the Solari had anticipated. Ulrich extended a hand, a human gesture of trust and defiance. Llewellyn took it. "This is not an invasion," Ulrich said. "Nor a conquest. This is a beginning." Llewellyn nodded. "And it is terrifying." They laughed. Together. Over the following days, the summit revealed the true nature of humanity. The Solari expected fear, aggression, irrationality. Instead, they found a species rich with contradictions, capable of profound kindness and brutal violence, laughter and tears, destruction and creation. Ulrich shared stories of battlefields and peace talks. Patel spoke of science, philosophy, and the unquenchable human thirst to explore. Llewellyn shared Solari histories, of wars lost and lessons learned. The exchange was raw, sometimes tense, but always genuine. Outside the halls, protests erupted. Some humans feared the aliens. Others saw opportunity. Some Solari elders decried the alliance. But within the chamber, a fragile trust took root. Then news arrived. A rogue faction in a distant system, hostile to Solari authority, launched an attack on a human colony. The council debated intervention. Ulrich stood firm. "If we are to be part of this universe, we must face its dangers together." Llewellyn agreed. "Your fight is now ours." The Solari fleet mobilized alongside human defenders. Their joint forces pushed back the invaders, blending Solari precision with human unpredictability. In the heat of battle, Ulrich and Llewellyn fought side by side. Two species united by choice. After the victory, Llewellyn addressed the council. "This is the future," he said. "Not order imposed from above, but cooperation born of respect." Chancellor Thale nodded slowly. "Perhaps. This is what we have been waiting for." Back on Earth, Ulrich and Patel looked to the stars. "We survived our own inferno," Ulrich said quietly. "Now we face the universe." Patel smiled. Together. The Solari Watchers had feared humanity's unpredictability. Instead they found a new hope. The galaxy was about to change. Word count. 1-200. Would you like me to help you with anything else? Maybe expanding scenes, dialogues, or a summary of the full story?
Tools.